I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Joanne, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're planning to come over to Europe for your holidays, or maybe to live here, or if you're wondering why is everything so expensive in America compared to Europe, then you are at the right channel, because in this channel we take a look and I react to videos about life and living in America versus life and living in Europe and the cost of. And today we're going to take a look at something that I did yesterday with comments, and this is the original, I guess, from first time you realized that America really messed you up, and there's a part 1 from TikTok compilations. I do not know if I want to do more of this, because there's a part 2 and a part 3. I already saw it because I looked it up. So let's take a look when Americans find out that they are really messed up by American society. Somewhere like that. Let's do this.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Literally early this morning, I dragged my ass to the embassy, which is an hour away from where I'm living in the Netherlands.
Oh, she's from the Netherlands. She dragged her ass over to the embassy, yeah?
I get into the embassy, I do my thing, I go up to the window, and I'm getting my passport name changed. I need a new passport so that I can leave, go back to the States to see my family, and come back into the country here. And I've been waiting for this meeting for over a month.
Okay. She needed a passport to get back to USA and then back into the Netherlands. So she has a visa right now, a visa, and not a passport. So, yeah, okay. She needed a passport, yeah?
I give the woman all of my stuff, and she's like, okay, great, where are the stamps? And I had printed out a checklist from the embassy website, and there were no stamps on this checklist. But apparently I needed to bring a couple of stamps so that way I could pay for the postage for the government to send me my passport.
Okay. Oh. That's not mentioned on the checklist. So you have a checklist. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And on the checklist, there was not mentioned that bring along stamps. And I don't know which stamps, American stamps or Dutch stamps, but bring along stamps.
Which I already have to pay for. And I already have to pay taxes to send me my passport, which I already have to pay for.
Yeah, it's usual that you have to pay to get a new document, but it's to pay for the document exclusive the stamps, not inclusive with the stamps, but excluded the stamps. Crazy.
And I already have to pay taxes in America, but I obviously don't see any of the benefit because I'm not living in the country. Why can't you just pay for my stamps? So now I have to wait 3 more months for another appointment to get my passport.
What? 3 more months? Oh dear. Oh dear. First a month and then another 3 months because she did not have stamps. Sad.
So I'm moving to Portugal and I have somebody that's helping me with the visa process over there. And she's asking me questions about my income. And I say, yeah, I have a full-time job and I also run 2 businesses. And she's like, that's a lot. And I said, yeah, I do work about, anywhere from 80 to 110 hours a week. But, what's necessary right now. I need to take care of my son. I need to manage all these different things. And I need to be able to afford, a pretty good life. And she said, well, don't you make over what the minimum is required here in Portugal? And I said, yeah, no, I definitely do, but I need to be able to take care of all those other things. And she's like, how do you have time for your son? I'm like, well, it's not the amount of time that I'd like, but that's what's necessary. And it just was really clear to me, like with the confusion, that they actually have work-life balance, and you just don't work yourself to death. You can actually enjoy your life.
Yeah, I would say so. 100 to 110 hours a week. In my highest days, and I did sometimes, I get up to 50, 60 hours a week for my job, and then another 24 to 36 hours in a weekend for my business. But that's on an exception, so not regularly. Sometimes it happened that I had a lot of work from my job, from my school, and another extra lot of work in the weekend for my business, but not every week. Wow. So yeah, no wonder that the Portuguese woman looked at her. Oh, wow, yeah. Work-life balance. Work to live. You don't live to work.
Hi. So
Hi.
I've been living in Spain for about 11 years, and this happened like 11 years ago. It was my first time going to the emergency room, and when, stomach problems, whatever, couldn't stop throwing up. And I go in, give the girl at the front desk my ID and my debit card. And she takes my ID, checks me in, hands both cards back to me. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I give the debit card, I pay at the end. So I go in, everything, give me medicine, and I go back out. I stop at the front desk again, and I was like, hi, I'm leaving. Here's my debit card. And she just looks at me and she's like, I don't know why you keep giving this to me. You don't need to give me your debit card. I don't get it. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to pay for health services, even in a private hospital.
Ding dong. Yeah, but she now lives for 11 years in Portugal, so, or rather she know, but yeah, ding dong, you don't need to pay.
Okay, I have another one. When I was studying in Spain, we had our
Again, Spain.
orientation the first week of classes, and our program director sat us all down and had to explain our health insurance to us and how it worked. And basically, it worked that you paid like €1,000 for the semester, and you got health insurance, like free health insurance for everything, covered everything. And she had to sit us down, and she had this big group of Americans in a room, and she was like, listen, if you are sick, go to the doctor. And we were all like, yes. And she was like, no, like Americans don't go to the doctor. You won't go to the doctor when you're sick. So I have to tell you every year to do this, and still kids will just put off going to the doctor because you're used to just like pushing through illness. No matter what it is, I don't care if it's a cold, go to the doctor. And she had to actually like spell that out for us.
Yeah, if you're sick, call in sick at your work and go to the doctor. Go to the doctor if you're sick. Don't come to your classes. Don't make all your classmates sick too. Stay home, call in sick, and go to the doctor. It doesn't cost you a dime.
Okay, so I was living in Thailand and I got into a motorcycle accident
Ooh, Thailand.
because the guy in front of me turned without a blinker. Like he was on a moped and he just kind of turned into the side of me and just knocked us both over. And so my motorcycle landed on my knee and I couldn't walk, so they needed to call me an ambulance to go to the hospital. But like I was like, I can't afford an ambulance, so the whole time that they're like, bring the ambulance is coming and they're like putting me in the ambulance, I was like, how much is this gonna cost? How much does this cost? Like I someone can pick me up, how much does this cost? Because like in the States it could be like $4,000 to get a 15-minute ride to the hospital.
$4,000 for an ambulance ride? $4,000? Wow, I'm a bit loud. I need to adjust this. I'm getting too enthusiastic. Okay, this is better. A bit better, yeah. Wow, $4,000.
And the guys just laughed at me and they were like trying to figure out the word for it and they're like, free, it's free. And I was like, huh, well, that's different.
Yeah. Oh, in a dark corner.
I'm a black person living in Japan right now. And yeah, so when you're in America and you're shopping, you're browsing, whatever, sometimes, not all the time, in my own experience, I've never had the experience of being followed around because of my skin color, because I just don't shop that often. And sometimes when I want to go get something, I know exactly what I want. I go in, I buy it, and then I leave. But here in Japan, when you go in and you're browsing for something, the employees are walking around to help you. So they may follow you, but they're not following you because of your skin tone. They're following you because they want to help you. They want to take the initiative and be right there when you need them, when you're ready to pay, if you have questions, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. No experience in Japan, so I do not know, but yeah. In America, you think that you will be followed, but yeah, that's messed up.
Hey, I live in Ireland and I've lived most of my adult life here. I moved to Ireland in 1995.
Ooh.
My teenage daughter was born here many years ago, and when she was born, I spent 2 nights in hospital before she was born. I had an emergency cesarean section, and then I spent a further 6 nights afterwards. The total cost to me was 0.
Yeah, I was expecting that because it was about healthcare. Yeah, total cost 0. None. Nada. Noppes. Not a dime.
I kept asking them, like, are you sure no one wants my credit card? Like, do you want my details so you can send me the bill? And they would just like laugh, like, oh, you're American.
Yeah,
There's
you're
no bill.
American.
So 8 nights in hospital, emergency procedure, 0 bill.
So when I was in high school, I was a lifeguard, and during my lifeguard training, they taught us that before we even administer
Lifeguard training and the lifeguard training. Typo. Sorry. Back up.
When I was in high school, I was a lifeguard, and during my lifeguard training, they taught us that before we even administer first aid or CPR, we had to ask for consent to avoid being sued.
Okay. If somebody is dying in America, you need to ask if he wants, otherwise you get sued. I've been a Red Cross volunteer for over 20 years. I've done 2 CPRs, but you do CPR. It's required by law. If you're able to, then you have to. That's, if you can help, you should help. That's by law.
Now fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in London as a waitress, and my company sends me to go do CPR training. And while I'm there, they go over the same stuff that I learned in the States, but I notice that they're completely glossing over this one particular area. So I raise my hand and I ask, what are the laws here? Like, how do you avoid being sued if something goes wrong? To which every single person in the room starts laughing at me and says, oh, you're American, right? Yeah, no one here is going to sue you for trying to save their life.
Yeah. He saved my life, but he broke a rib. But it's a good chance that when you're pumping out, when you're reanimating, when you're pumping on the chest, that you broke or that you can break a rib for somebody. But yeah, it's CPR. And then you get sued. No, that's not happening over here in Europe. No. Okay, I have 1 type of diabetes.
Okay, I have type 1 diabetes and I lived in Costa Rica. The very first day that I was there, my insulin pump stopped working. This was like some weird fluke, unrelated to anything else. But I didn't have a doctor yet or really know where to go, so I went to a pharmacy because I needed to get long-acting insulin so I could still treat my disease. And when I went to the pharmacy, the insulin was $20 for a vial. In the United States, I pay $322 for that same vial.
Oh. $20 versus $320 for the same vial.
I also want to add that I got the insulin over the counter without a prescription. In the United States, I have to see my endocrinologist 4 times a year to get a prescription for a medication that keeps me alive.
Yeah, and probably the doctor also put a bell on that because she has to come 4 times a year too. So it's $320 for the file, another 4 times whatever. So it's capitalism. Big pharma. Yeah. Oh, we're ready in the United States.
Here's a fun one. So I'm teaching 3rd grade in Thailand, right? And it's sports day. Kids running around, screaming, having fun, as kids do. And I hear a bang. Instantly, my heart drops into my stomach. My entire body tenses. My adrenaline starts pumping. And I'm looking around for the shooter. And then I realize I'm in Thailand. And people don't have guns. And they don't shoot children at their school. It was a balloon. A balloon popped. Fuck you, America.
A balloon popped and he thought, gunshot. Kids are getting shot. Wow. No, it's Thailand. It's I do not know how safe it is, but at least it is safe. Safer than a school in the United States, according to the many shootings that there are. Yeah.
So I don't live abroad anymore, but for half of 2018, I lived in Germany, and I have so many stories.
Okay, Germany.
The town that I lived in had like a main plaza area, and there was a cafe in that plaza. So a couple of my other American friends and I decided to try it out one day, and there was a construction site nearby. We heard a really loud bang, and, you know, we kind of assumed that someone had fired a gun, and so we, like, ducked for cover, and then we were looking around frantically, trying to find, like, a place that we could run to or hide to get out of the situation, and then we realized that no one had shot a gun. No, it was a loud bang from the construction site. That's it. That's all it was. We'd been speaking in English, and we all have really obvious American accents, so all the Germans around us gave us these really sad looks, like, oh, these poor, poor Americans.
I've lived abroad for...
Yeah. Yeah. Then you're really messed up. The one from Thailand and she in Germany. Wow, every time you hear a loud bang, the first thing you think is duck, take cover, because somebody is shooting. Wow.
For a little over a year, and coming back for the holidays, I have really come to realize that the food in this country is garbage. Since leaving the US, I have lost about 40 pounds, and I have not tried to lose weight. I haven't been conscious that I'm losing weight. It just has naturally fallen off of me because food in other countries is not overprocessed. It's not packed with sugar and preservatives and all of the things that are in the food here. And so
yeah, this is more healthy food. She lost 40 pounds. That's a lot. Really a lot. Wow. But yeah. It's cheaper too.
Since being back, even for the short amount of time that I've been here, I have found it extremely difficult to maintain my weight, even though I'm not overeating. I'm eating basically the same diet I was eating abroad. It's simply the way the food is processed. So moral of the story, try eating organic as much as possible. This food is killing you.
Yeah, but what I understand, and I see it's the last clip, so I go to the second part. But what I understand, eating organic or eating fresh is more expensive than the super pre-processed food, fully processed food. as I understand it. So that's why people rather take the unhealthy food versus the more organic or fresh food because fresh vegetables, because the price of fresh vegetables is much higher than pre-processed. This is part one. Is this part two? First time you realized? I think so. Let's go to part two.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
When I was dancing in Australia, I did a jump and landed on the outside of my right foot. I sprained it real bad. And they drove me to a private hospital, and I was like...
Okay, here we go again. Free healthcare.
Panicking. But anyway, that's the one that was available to me at the time. And on my way into the lobby, I was, hobbling on my crutches. And they spotted me from the parking lot. The doctor came out to me before I even was in the building and went back into the hospital and told them that I was coming. In the waiting room, they came into the waiting room to examine my foot. And I never paid a penny for that shit.
Yeah. Service at the door. I guess that this will be the theme through all these messed you up videos, that it's free healthcare, overworked, there's too much working hours, or not the right food. I'm curious if there are anything else that messed Americans up when they are in Europe.
So I can make like 200 of these, but I'll just talk about the first time I realized how fucked up the US is, which was in the first week that I got to Sweden. When my boyfriend's family told me that I need to make sure I get insured, and that I get insurance for...
Okay, different size, different theme. Insurance. Okay, let's hear it.
Everything I own, my laptop, my bike, my apartment, my whole body. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's so expensive. Like, I'm already super in debt with student loans, so no. But I asked out of curiosity just like how much it was going to cost. $100 a year to insure everything I have. For reference, like the average American person spends $456 a month just on health insurance. Just for healthcare.
Healthcare, 476, and now she pays 100 for healthcare. Home insurance, I guess, reliability of responsibility insurance, and the car and the house, and 100 a year.
That doesn't include cars or home insurance. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's just see for what? Yeah. It's not 100 over in the Netherlands, I can tell you that, but it's also not €400 only for your health insurance. I guess from all the insurances that you have over in the Netherlands, I guess in total you pay 200. Yeah, it's let's say you pay 150 every month for your health insurance, and all the other insurances are about 150 a year. So that's in general, then you are fully covered for your car, your home, your health insurance, everything is in it.
Okay, so I'm not currently living abroad, but I did live in Australia for a few months. And one night while I was there, I got a little bit too crazy, and I ended up on public transportation without a phone, and I had to find my way back to my apartment, and I got lost. And while I got off the tram to get onto a different tram to take me home,
A like middle-aged gentleman came up to me, and I immediately went into attack mode, and I was like going to kill him, and he was like, no, I was just gonna tell you which tram to take to get back to Preston. And that was when I realized that in Australia, I didn't need to be afraid. Like, granted, take precautions, but I didn't need to be afraid of every man. But in America, I still am.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I understand it. Wow. You don't feel safe as a woman, as a young woman out in the street without a phone. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Ooh, I've been waiting for this one. So at the time, I was living in Germany and I had gotten food poisoning after traveling back from a country. And I was so sick, I was not eating, like not taking anything, and it had been like 4 or 5 days. It was really bad. I was too afraid to go to the hospital, one, because I was afraid I couldn't translate, but two, like I just didn't want to deal with everything. But my friend said, no, we have to go. So I went. Tell me why we didn't have to wait on an emergency line. I was in the emergency room looking around. I was like, where do I sign in? Like, where's the line? Where are all the people? And they're like, no, you can go right in and go sit down. We'll be right with you. And I literally walked straight into the office, like straight in. And while I was struggling to explain what was going on, they brought in 5 different doctors of each different one. And it only took them 5 minutes to come each time when they realized they couldn't help me. It was somebody else they needed. And I didn't have to pay anything on top of that.
Yeah. 5 different doctors looking at her to find out what's wrong with her, and 0 payment, nothing, nada, noppes, no. I am an American living abroad in Thailand. Okay.
I'm an American living abroad in Thailand. We've been living here for a year now. So we literally moved here when the pandemic started. My husband had a business trip right before the country closed to Singapore. He came back from Singapore with a fever. So they transported him to a hospital. That hospital, however, didn't have the facilities for full-on quarantine, and so they transported him using an ambulance to another hospital where he was COVID tested and quarantined. Luckily, he tested negative, but he still spent 2 days in the hospital and was transported by ambulance. And so I was thinking the cost was going to be so expensive.
Yeah, rides and overnight costs. Oh, she was a 5,000 there, 4,000 there, 5,000 there.
The overall cost of it was less than $300, where back in the States, I know it would have been thousands. It's just incredible to me that healthcare is affordable.
That's incredible that healthcare can be affordable. LA to Singapore.
I'm from LA and I moved to Singapore. And before coming here, I asked all my friends if I should bring anything like, a pepper spray just in case anything happens. And they were like, no, that's actually illegal. I don't think that they're allowed to have any kind of weapon. And I was like, what? We literally put them in our keychains as accessories. I was like, how do you defend yourself? They were like, from what? You don't have to. It's so safe.
I need to defend myself. And from whom?
I was like, no way. So I Googled it, and no one is allowed to use greater force than necessary to defend themselves. What? The US can't ban guns, but Singapore can ban pepper sprays?
Yeah, they don't need to ban the guns, but they need to regulate it better. Get better regulation about guns. I know the Second Amendment, but regulate it. Better regulation. Who can and who cannot have a gun, and when not to use a gun. Regulation.
So I didn't realize this until I moved abroad, but Americans have a very strange concept of freedom. Like, when you're growing up, you're always told that America is such an amazing place, and, it's the land of the free, home of the brave, but, I keep hearing these criticisms from people like, oh yeah, but America has the most freedom. Wow, yeah, freedom. I mean, there may be a few exceptions or nuances, but in the UK, you're still free. Like, that is the biggest lie that Americans are ever told,
Okay.
that there aren't other free places. Like, I don't understand. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I feel like the concept is kind of destroying American democracy. How ironic. Like, they need to kind of understand that they need to work on things to make themselves better and more free for their citizens.
Yeah. I hear it more often that there's still that other countries in Europe have not the same freedom as we are. We in America have all the freedoms, and other people, other countries, especially Europe, those people aren't free. Well, we have the same democracy as that you have in the United States, and we have the same freedom, and even more than that. The only restriction versus American freedom and European freedom, the only restriction is hate speech. It's not allowed to do hate speech. That's against the law. Everything else, freedom of expression, and it's not freedom of speech, but we have freedom of expression. And that's something else than we do in the United States. So, yeah. Don't tell me that we don't have freedom over here in Europe.
So just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me,
Well, Latvia. Wow.
I was
You guys go all over the world. Taiwan and Portugal and Latvia and Ireland and Spain. Nice. Latvia. Mm-hmm.
So just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me, I was working in the UK as a bartender. And my coworkers and I were talking about gun violence in the US, and they were kind of making jokes like, "Oh, I'm surprised you graduated and you didn't get shot first," and stuff like that. And I guess I was trying to defend it, so I was saying, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. I only know one school that had an active shooter and had to go into lockdown. And, for me, I only had one gun threat in high school, and it was just a threat, and one when I was in elementary school. And then my coworkers kind of looked at me like, "You what? And you think that's normal?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's not even that bad."
It's not even that bad. Yeah, it's not normal. Even once is not normal.
I was in Grenada for a couple of weeks, and
nice what she did with her hair. Wow.
And every single day between 12 and 2, they would always close down. Everything would just close down. And I was just like, what is going on? And they were like, well, we need to go home and have lunch with our family, just enjoy, just relax a little bit. And that was when I realized every other country out here really understands the value of spending time with your loved ones and just actually taking a break, except America. America just teaches us to work for labor.
And work more.
Instead of actually living. So don't procrastinate on your happiness, sis. Your worth is not in labor. It's a luxury. Do what you want to do and be happy. Period.
Oh,
Good advice. Good advice. Yeah.
got a couple. So I'm from Los Angeles and now I live in Austria. And basically when I first started working here, they were like, you get 25 days vacation, Fridays off early, and if you're sick, don't come into work. And I was just like,
Huh?
I was
Yeah. Yeah. What?
was floored. Because in the US, you only get 10 days vacation and like 5 sick days, and you don't get 5 days off early. You better work your ass until it's 9 p.m. On top of all of that, all my friends here have like 2 masters, 3 PhDs, etc., 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 because education here is actually free. Amazing. What an amazing concept. In addition, I have yet to see a large homeless community out in the open here in Austria because the government actually offers some social support. A lot of social support. In LA, you have villages, streets, blocks full of homeless people because our government doesn't care about us.
And here, people like don't measure their worth off the car they drive.
Yeah. Okay, a lot of stuff came on by. Yeah, free education. That's in Europe. Social security network. So for the homelessness is not that common. Sometimes people refuse, but they get help. Social security. And she had, the work-life balance is, especially different in Austria. Yeah. Okay, I live in New York now.
Okay, so I live in New York now, but I used to live in England. And one time I was out at this bar with my friends, and these two cops walked by. And one of my friends was like, oh, I wonder why there are cops out right now. And I looked at the cops, and I got really confused. And I was like, those are cops? And my friends were like, yeah. And I was like, they don't have guns. And everyone was like, why would they have guns? They were like so aghast at that question. And I realized in that moment and learned that guns, there are so few guns in the UK, and it's such not an issue that like the everyday cop does not carry a gun. And I was just, there are houses in America that have seen more guns in them than a fresh vegetable. It blew my fucking mind.
Yeah, in the Netherlands, they actually wear a gun, so they are fully equipped, but it's precautionary, but it's not because there's so much gun violence they need to protect themselves, but they need to have a gun as a part of their equipment. Yeah, so over in the Netherlands, they have a gun.
I think about it all the time. I hate guns so much. I hate guns so much.
He really hates guns. Yeah. But the difference between the cops in the United States and the cops over here in the Netherlands, and I'm not sure about England, the UK, but over here in the Netherlands, I know 4-year minimum training before you even get out there. Yeah, you have to do some internship, but 4 years school before you can call yourself a cop. And if you want to do it from early age, then there's another 3-year first pre-education to go to the police school, and then another 4 years in the police school. So when you're at the age of 16 and you want to become a cop, then you are a cop by the age of 23.
I was living in Italy and my friend needed an ambulance. We weren't going to get an ambulance because of the cost. And then we learned that in Italy, it's free for ambulances. We were literally like, wow, it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars for an ambulance. That is crazy. A human life is in fact more valuable than profit here.
Yeah, I know. It's the final one. Oh.
It is so sad that we have accepted if you are in a vulnerable health situation, it will cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and many people go into medical debt because of this. Where are our priorities?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to be there. It's capitalism. It's making money on every layer of the society, wherever it's possible to grab a dime, to make money, to get richer. It will happen in the United States. It's ridiculous. It's why that a lot of people are coming over to Europe, and that I'm happy that I live in Europe, and I'm happy to live in the Netherlands. Wow. Okay. I hope you liked the video, and if you do, then press like. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good point to start. And please hit the subscribe button. That will also mean the world to me. And we will see you in the next video.